Welcome to the World Walk. I'm Ty, and I want to start with a question again. Who raised you? Not who gave birth to you, who actually raised you? Because for a lot of people, those are two different answers. And the person who shaped who you are, the person whose voice you still hear in your head when you're making decisions, that person might not share your last name. They might not share your blood. They might be a grandparent, an uncle, an aunt, a cousin, a coach, someone at church, someone in your neighborhood who just decided to show up. We're in the book of Esther, chapter 2. This was a Sunday school lesson that I decided to convert into a podcast episode. So the book of Esther is built on that exact question. The girl who saved the Jewish people from genocide. Well, she's an orphan. Both her parents dead. And the man who raised her, the man whose faithfulness sets up everything that follows, he's not her father, because again, I said her parents are dead. He's her cousin. His name is Mordecai. And if you trace what he does through Esther chapter 2 and into chapter 4, you find 5 specific things he did that changed the entire direction of her life. And that's what I want to walk through today. We're not going verse by verse today. We're just going to talk about Mordecai and Esther. What did Mordecai actually do? Because the way he shows up in Esther's life is worth studying a bit closely. But first, some context in case, you missed some stuff. Because Mordecai and Esther aren't where they're supposed to be. See, when Babylon fell to the Persians, the Jews were allowed to go back to Jerusalem. And about 49,000 went back with Zerubbabel. But over 1 million stayed. They were comfortable. They had jobs, families, routines, and the idea of starting over in a burnt down city didn't sound that great when you already had a whole life there in Persia. Mordecai and Esther are part of that group, the ones who stayed. And you can tell by their names because Esther isn't even her real name. That's her Persian name, tied to Ishtar, a Babylonian goddess. Her Hebrew name is Hadassah, which means myrtle. Bad at pronouncing names. Mordecai's name comes from Marduk. Yeah, another pagan god. These are Jewish people living in a pagan empire with pagan names. They're blending in. And God still used them. You don't have to be in the perfect situation for God to put you where he wants you. So here's the first thing Mordecai does. Esther chapter 2, verse 7. I'm going with the CSB this episode. Mordecai was the legal guardian of his cousin Hadassah, that is Esther, because she had no father or mother. The young woman had a beautiful figure and was extremely good looking. When her father and mother died, Mordecai had adopted her as his own daughter. Right? He took her in. Esther is an orphan, both parents dead. She's a Jewish girl in a foreign empire with nobody, and Mordecai, her older cousin, takes her in and raises her like she's his own kid. Nobody told him to do any of that. The text doesn't say God commanded it. It doesn't say a rabbi instructed it. It doesn't say family pressure forced it. He just did it. He saw a child with no one, and he stepped in. And here's what you have to understand. Everything that happens in this book, the palace, the crown, the rescue of an entire people, all of it traces back to this one decision. If Mordecai doesn't take her in, there is no book of Esther. There is no queen. There is no, for such a time as this. That's a quote. It all starts here, one man choosing to show up when he didn't have to do it. But then something happens that Mordecai can't control. Esther gets taken to the palace. The king, Ahasuerus, or depending on translation, Xerxes, has just removed Queen Vashti in chapter 1. Go back and read it if you haven't. And now, there's an empire-wide search for a new queen. So every beautiful young woman gets gathered into the palace, whether they wanted to or not. And they're all gathered into the palace. They go through a year of beauty preparation. Yeah, when you hear about that, you don't want to complain about your wife spending 8 hours getting her hair done, right? They go through a year of all that. And then they each get one night with the king. Esther didn't volunteer for this. She got taken. And Mordecai can't follow her in. So what did he do? He gives her one instruction before she walks through the door. Chapter 2, verse 10. Esther did not reveal her ethnicity or her family background because Mordecai had ordered her not to make them known. Don't tell them you're Jewish. Shut. No, don't bring it up. Why would he say that? The Persians had been decent to the Jews up to this point. You know, Cyrus let them go home if he wanted to. But Mordecai could feel something shifting. There was a hatred towards Jewish people growing under the surface, just brewing. And it was about to blow up when a man named Haman shows up a few chapters later. Mordecai reads the room before Esther could. He saw the danger coming before she did. And because he couldn't go with her into the palace, because he couldn't protect her inside those walls, he gave her the next best thing. He gave her his words. His instruction went. It went with her into the palace when he couldn't. Here's a question, right? Is there someone in your life like that? Someone who told you something years ago and you still hear it? Someone who gave you words before you walked into a room they couldn't follow you into? That's Mordecai. He couldn't be in a room, but his words were. Now here's what he does next. In this part, and something most people skip because it's just so simple. Talking about chapter 2, verse 11. Every day, Mordecai took a walk in front of the harem's courtyard to learn how Esther was doing and to see what was happening to her. Every single day. Not once a week. Not when he had time. It says every single day. Mordecai walked to the front of the courtyard. He couldn't visit. He sure wasn't getting in. There's no evidence they were even having conversations. He just walked by every day to see if she was okay. Think about the timeline. Each woman in this process, again, went through 12 months of beauty preparation before she even got to see the king. It says 6 months of oil of myrrh, 6 months of perfumes and cosmetics, a full year, and Mordecai is outside, pacing the entire time. He can't change the situation. He can't pull her out. He can't fix anything at all. But he can show up. He can be there. Even if all he's doing is walking past a wall. The message is the same. He's saying, I haven't forgotten about you. And he didn't care from far away. By chapter 2, verse 19, Mordecai is sitting at the king's gate. That's probably a court position. He worked his way closer. He got as close as he could be on purpose. Some of the most important people in your life aren't the ones who fixed everything. Some of the most important people in your lives aren't the ones who fixed everything. They're the ones who kept showing up consistently, quietly, without being asked. Again, that's Mordecai here. So he's been pacing outside that wall for a year. He's worked his way into the king's gate. And then Esther becomes queen. She's got everything. Crown, servants, the king's favor. So the question is, does she even need Mordecai anymore? Does she still need him? Verse 20 of chapter 2 of Esther. Esther still did not reveal her family background or her ethnicity, as Mordecai had directed. She obeyed Mordecai's order, as she always had while he raised her. Esther, she outranks him in every visible way. She's in the palace. He's sitting at the gate. But she still listens to him the same way she did when he was raising her. Think about how many voices were in her ear at this point. The king had a harem of 360 women, one for each night of the Persian calendar, 360 versus our 365. Who knows how many children have come from all of that? Esther is basically surrounded by competition, luxury, flattery, people telling her how great she is. And the one voice she keeps going back to is the man who raised her. Not because he was the loudest voice in the palace, but because he was the most faithful voice outside of it. She didn't listen to him because he had some title. She listened because he had been there for her whole life. She watched him show up day after day, year after year. That's where real authority comes from, not necessarily position, but faithfulness over time. And that trust he built over all those years, it's about to matter more than either of them know. Because the situation is about to change. It's about to change fast. A decree goes out to kill every Jew in the Persian Empire. And here's the thing about Persian law. Once the king signs something, it's done. It can't be taken back. No backseas. Not even by the king himself. That's the same legal system that got Daniel thrown into the lion's den. Darius loved Daniel, but couldn't undo the law he'd already signed. Same rules. So this order to wipe out every Jewish person is permanent, written, and spread across 127 provinces. Mordecai gets word to Esther, you need to go to the king. You got to say something. You got to say something fast. We're in danger. Esther, she hesitates. In chapter 4, verse 11, she basically says, if I go to the king without being called, I could die. And she's not exaggerating. She's not being dramatic. You know, there's a Greek historian named Herodotus who wrote about the same king. He records that when a storm destroyed a bridge that Xerxes built, the king ordered the ocean should be whipped 300 times. Yeah, he ordered the ocean to be whipped 300 times. But then he executed every man who built the bridge. That was in Histories 7.35, if you want to look it up. That's the man Esther is married to. A man that has the ocean whipped 300 times with chains and then murders the people who built the bridge. So approaching him uninvited is not a small thing. And then this is what Mordecai sends back after that. Esther chapter 4, verse 13 and 14. Do not think that you will escape the fate of all the Jews because you are in the king's palace. If you keep silent at this time, relief and deliverance will come to the Jewish people from another place, but you and your father's family will be destroyed. Who knows? Perhaps you have come to your royal position for such a time as this. Mordecai doesn't comfort her. He doesn't say, oh, well, I get it. Take your time. Let's work this out. No, he says, you are not safe just because you have a crown. Your title does not make you exempt. And maybe, just maybe, this is exactly why God put you here. Think about what he's really saying. He's saying everything that happened to you, losing your parents, me raising you, you ending up in this palace, all of it was leading to right now. You couldn't see it then. You can barely see it now. But God was moving pieces around on a board you didn't even know was there. There's a Calvary Chapel pastor named Skip Hetzig who says it like this: God is playing chess and winning in this book, the book of Esther. That's the hardest kind of love. Not the kind that tells you what you want to hear, the kind that tells you the truth when you'd rather hear something comfortable. The kind that pushes you towards the thing you're afraid of because they know you're the one who's supposed to do it. So look at what Mordecai did. Again, he took her in. He gave her wisdom. He stayed present. He earned trust over the years. And when it counted, he told her the truth. That's not 5 random things. That's a pattern. That's what it looks like when one person decides to be faithful in somebody else's life over a period of time. And Mordecai wasn't her father. The text is clear about that. Again, he adopted her. Mordecai is her cousin. Her father was dead. Mordecai, a cousin who chose to step in, nobody made him do it. He just did it. And God used that filthiness to set up the biggest rescue, one of the biggest rescues in the Bible. Some of you listening right now have a Mordecai in your life. You might not have used that word for him, of course, because who would, right? But there's someone likely who took you in and taught you something, who kept showing up when they didn't have to, and told you the truth when everybody else was quiet. You were different because of them. I have had multiple Mordecais. A guy who rode a skateboard to work every day when I started working IT in the World Trade Center back in 99, 2000. Elders at church who I got plopped in front of and got me where I am. Gave me advice that I didn't know I needed. And spoke to me in a language that I needed. And if he's listening, you know I'm talking about you. Yes, it's you. Mordecai didn't know the full plan. When he took in his orphan cousin, he wasn't thinking, oh, one day she's going to be queen and save our people. He was just being faithful with what was in front of him, and God used it. God never wastes a life. You just have to wait for the rest of the book. If this episode hits home, if you thought it was helpful, I'd love to hear what your feelings. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter, or I guess I should start calling it X and stop fighting, at The Word Walk. The new website, thewordwalk.com. You can visit there as well and find other episodes. And if you haven't already, leave a rating or review on Apple or Spotify. It helps more people find the episodes. Until next week, I'm Ty. May God bless your steps wherever you go.
Darkness you shine, out of the ashes we rise. There's no one like you, none like you. Our God is